Yeah, it's kind of like thinking about the Restless Heart song, I'll Still Be Loving You. And it seemed to be something about until the last moon is rising. It's kind of like, I'll still be loving you. And that's just one of the things about amyloidosis seems to be, I mean, it is so, I mean, a demanded requirement to be still. It's unreal. The song, I Still Be Loving You, okay? It's kind of like until the last moon is rising. I mean, it seemed to be the one that I picked. It was like based upon, I've got to the point of like having a little bit of idea of I'm assuming that economics provided what it means geographically as far as availability means. But anyway, it's kind of like I got the moon, okay, a picture of a full moon above the ocean's horizon, okay. It's like at night, okay. It's a full moon, and it's like I mean, as a point of view, I mean, as far as like inches on the poster itself, it's probably about maybe 2 inches above the horizon, maybe somewhere in there. But anyway, yeah. But it seemed to be, I mean, the coolest one available because it has, the waves coming in on the shore, the beach, and what would normally be white, it's like presenting like the black and white of like black light, and it has those colors. And I thought that was like really cool. So like I got it, but I was reading it. Contemplation. If today were perfect, there would be no need for tomorrow. And it's kind of like for a while, after I'd got on YouTube, a whole bunch of issues were like starting to happen. And that was one of the deals about. I realized that I was having a circulation issue, amongst other things. Yeah, so like and ultimately, it'd been admitting diagnosis is congestive heart failure, but I didn't believe anything about it because I knew I had a circulation issue involving the blood vessels. And ultimately, I mean, I knew that like the first time before I was even admitted. I mean, I knew that much about circulation because of like when I was in baseball in high school, really all through the 12 public grade, well, including this what I'm referring to is like Little League, okay? All the way, like through JV and like varsity. I didn't play like American Legion, which is normally really not high school, but they, in parallel when I was like playing like on the varsity team, they during the summer, American Legion would use the baseball parallel high schools like baseball field. I chose kind of like not to, but it's kind of like thinking about the linguistic alphanumerics and the AL of like American Legion, the alphanumeric linguistics, and the exact opposite being LA and like Los Angeles and linguistic alphanumerics. And it's kind of like I was kind of like had a new perception of that like back in high school during the 80s, early 80s as a matter of fact, as compared to like when I really got started, a good solid 5 years of alphanumerics, alone. Before I even started, applying like symbolic and analytical in combination with like alphanumeric combined, and all that stuff. It's a good solid, 5 years. But really, when I decided to go on an analytical and symbolic or combined two with the alphanumerics, numerical, alphanumerical, and the power of the principal being using two alphanumeric values as an analytical, including any symbolic. It's kind of like I use the M as in, 13 is 14, the two letters in the syllable alphabet. But in any case, like back to like like Restless Heart, I'll Still Be Loving You. It's kind of like I knew I'd had a circulation issue and I was having to call 911. Really for 16-month period, but only the 15th month I didn't have to call 911. I knew it was a circulation issue because likewise, in addition, it's kind of like my air in my home was becoming like factors of like weather conditions and actually became like charged and getting shocked in midair. I mean, all that going on, I had a lot of equipment going on. I'm not sure if that's the only factor of having a 10,000 watt power amp. Maybe so, maybe not at all, even the issue at all. But I mean, my inside of my home became like an atmosphere, issue of like several factors and exposure, really not limited to a 16-month period, but like I said, the 15-month I didn't have to call 911. Every admitting diagnosis was like congestive heart failure, and I'm kind of like going, really I didn't say anything the first time about amyloidosis. I mean, I was referring specifically, an issue with like circulation, and ultimately getting right back to I'll Still Be Loving You with like the song with like Restless Heart. It's kind of like a thing about I'm in low doses is that an overabundant amount of white blood cells being produced based upon exposure affecting bone marrow, in turn the immunoglobulin that produces the overabundant amount of white blood cells to combat what is normally the idea of the immune system normally suggested in oncology. It's not, the only one, but predominantly where you hear it probably most, involving, combating, cancer with like chemotherapy and radiation treatment and isotope and all that exposure with like magnetic resonance imagery with like, different types of resonance, contrast. Yeah, so like all that like goes on, okay, and but like with amyloidosis, it's kind of like I knew I had it. Both my parents passed away with cancer, but I never heard it like not one time during their cancer treatment with chemotherapy or radiation or different methods to my mother had cancer with like stage 4 and like made it 2 years before she passed away. My father likewise had it and passed away after 3 years. I gathered quite a bit of information, going with him like all the time with like chemotherapy and infusions, blood transfusions, and but in any case, yeah. So like, I never heard anything about amyloidosis. Okay, I'm in my home playing my drums. Okay, and I'm slowly feeling like I'm getting shocked on the neurosensory side. Okay, and in combination, other factors involving like an over amount of white blood cells being produced, and it was like shutting my body down. I knew it was amyloidosis because I so knew automatically the first time before I even got to the emergency room. The first time there was a circulation issue, not a congestive heart failure. Ultimately, it can get to that point, but it shuts down the body from its functionality. And being still is like the only demanded that matters. Unlike anything on the entire planet, like when it gets to that point of having to be still, rolling over in bed, getting up to go to the restroom, or just sitting up. And the word I got the poster, okay, is what I'm really getting at, is contemplation. If today were perfect, there wouldn't be a need for tomorrow. But never in my entire life, I've heard about the word contemplation. But it did not have significance. But knowing and still the admitting diagnosis was congestive heart failure, okay, but it was really amyloidosis. I told him, who you trying to kid, okay? All that other you're prescribing, it's like you're really prescribing congestive heart failure. You're not treating it. You're not combating it. You're creating it and distributing the crap that you're prescribing. all the way through it, and went to different hospitals around the Houston area, predominantly in the southeast side and the south side. In any case, yeah, so like it got to that point. In any case, but it's so, phenomenal. Beyond serious. Being still, it's unreal. So demanded. It's unreal. Making any kind of motion in bed, rolling over in bed, getting up. Just to sit up. That one word contemplation became, unreal. Experiencing, just trying to make a decision to just sit up to maybe make another decision, and maybe beyond that point, maybe getting up. All day, every day. From us, trying to make a decision if I'm going to even get up and like go through potentially what would be like the heart backfiring, because there's no circulation. It's like jam packed with like white blood cells, and it will not allow blood to flow or circulate. And it's almost like the heart's going to backfire and just like, have like a massive heart attack and explode. So like not a joke, it's unreal. So like, I hear that in songs, about the thing about, be still, and I hear it in a whole different way, but yeah, as far as like photography, kind of like used to be the still shot. In any case, so like, anyway, the Restless Heart song is kind of like, I'll Still Be Loving You Until the Last Moon Is Rising. And it seemed to be like I'm looking at it on my wall. Yet it seemed to be like another deal. I was kind of like going through a military burial deterrent, 1995, and the Memory-Defacto seemed to be like a 25 to 30 period year later, involving like including 1995 and like now in 2025, a bike that's obviously been a concept in the Free Sky Rocky Pro that was actually a location that was taken to during the Stargate program. And out in the woods, and the guy that's actually in it is, the guy says, "Consider it shredded, Mr. President," is the one for like Free Sky Rocky Pro. But I mean, it has to connect in. I'm kind of like, where did I meet that guy? And I'd remember something when I started remembering that memory had been, a phenomenally huge thing for, really beyond a 1 year period. But becoming a Stargate pro, I didn't even consider going to the circuit. A Stargate program, although I saw stars, different locations. When I'd realized that memory was like the huge issue being taken to other locations, it was like involving motion picture and concerts around the world. Like while I'm asleep, I'm getting gassed and aerated and like taken to places. And it seemed to be like ultimately, after, years and years of like studying linguistics and alphanumerics and just like realizing, I was doing that anyway because of the baptism, Six Flag, Saturday morning SAT, June 14, 1992 Flag Day, like Better Business Bureau bird bat baptism, and seemed to be of the psychic warrior, okay, and the book cover, with Morehouse, is the author's name. I'm actually trying to remember if it's William or Robert or what the first name is of the author, but the guy's underwater, okay, and it's like shallow, okay. Like Six Flag baptism. It seemed to be like a once in a lifetime deal based upon my birth year. Now, of like Vice President Networks having some idea of like intellectual claim, it's like having fair use is an easement, and like it's like going through. It's kind of like the issue. It seemed to be like having fair use of like even a birth certificate. And kind of like all this is going on, and like not one word. My entire life. I'm 61 years of age now. Okay. And like so many things were like going on when I was going through the circuit. I was so like going through my thing about just like adapting, to the immediate. It's like when going through the circuit, it's like everything you've ever known is not the way it is. Like from the word get go. The first 30 seconds getting in there, for real, and on top of that, trying to study the alphanumerics and all that, and plus an experience, of baptism before. I didn't stop studying what the deal is, okay? I didn't even consider it like Abraham Lincoln studying in the dark, although I'm almost for certain like anyone would automatically see the color code about that, inside. And likewise, ultimately lead to the color codes of like United States codes, annotated, as well as like U.S. constitutional law, and the black dots on the map, ultimately even, caviar and hors d'oeuvres and caviar, and Prince of Wales thing about, some idea of like, all that, yeah. So like, in any case, so like, it's kind of like looking at that with that poster and contemplation. And during like amyloidosis, it is so, beyond important to stay still as possible. It's like almost like life threatening. Just, not in any other way than just maybe making a decision or maybe get comfortable in the bed. Maybe just making decisions to get comfortable in bed. It's almost potentially, like a massive heart attack when it gets to that point with the amyloidosis, and overrunning amount of white blood cells congest the blood vessels and the entire body, and like it blocks all the functionality of the body. All of it, in the entire body. It's so like beyond like not a joke. It's unreal, serious as it gets, and people might hear that in a different way if they've ever experienced it or known anyone. That one word, I'm looking at it on my wall, I'm kind of like going, it's almost like the rest of this hard song, I'll still be loving you until the last moon is rising. Yet it seemed to be the Tommy Lee Jones thing about Black Moon Rising, and like a dual effect of the zoom lens and like a vodka in front of a jet that seemed to give the, like, psychology might identify it. I don't really think it's a psychiatric deal, although I don't think I'd choose the word psychiatric at all, based upon, a little bit of experience about that. But it seemed to be like, it's really not stage fright, but it's kind of like I was saying at the podium one time, I just wanted to talk, okay? There's hardly anyone in, the room. It's like, well, there's not that many people. Yeah, all right. So, like, I got up and I started talking, okay, and I got to a point that I didn't know which direction I was going to go, with what I wanted to talk about. I didn't know what I wanted to talk. I didn't plan not one thing about it. Okay, and I came to a little pause, trying to, like adopt to like that pause and like not panic. But all of a sudden, like the awareness of the size of like the room, it's kind of like I came so consciously aware of it. And it's like almost like a perception and emotion at the same time. It's like the room's like getting bigger. It's kind of like, wow, the presence and magnitude of like everyone watching, which there was like really hardly anyone in there to begin with. But at the same time, I mean for real, it's kind of like not panic, not stage fright, but it's like that effect, the dual lens effect. It's like in Tommy Lee Jones' movie Black Moon Rising, and like I think it's Tommy Lee Jones. I think it's at an airport. The 18-wheeler's like in the background, and he's running and away from it. And it's kind of like a dual transition between the effect of time and speed and size based upon the guy running. I think it's Tommy Lee Jones, but anyway, he's staying pretty much what would be normally the speed of like getting closer at like a good running pace like that's in the movie. Yet the 18-wheeler behind it was like beyond what might have looked maybe in reality maybe a 45 or 50 mile an hour, maybe 55 mile per hour deal, but it's getting bigger, and with the guy running in front, it's like a dual magnification. And in addition, with like the 18-wheeler, it's like a dual magnification of the 18-wheeler, and it's kind of like counteracting and the displacement of like, and giving a whole different like 3D, not really a conflict of interest, but I mean it's giving an effect. I mean that it's kind of sometimes like been described in psychiatrics. I don't think it's a psychiatric issue. I've heard it in that way, but not in my experience. It's just like me not being prepared at a podium. But it kind of like reminded me of like Ivanka Trump at a podium in front of like a Boeing jet. And it seemed to be a thing about like a Bette Midler's song, okay? And Sammy Hagar returning home. Okay, it's kind of like God is watching from a distance. It's almost like the deal about, the jet with George Bush in it, with like the Dream Theater Sacrifice Sons music video, okay? With the cargo jet, okay? With a, looking up point of view. Yet the Soviet Union presidential jet, it's not a cargo. Yet it looks virtually identical in design. Yet it's not a cargo. One's a cargo and one's not. But the jet in with George Bush in it's looking, kind of like an army green, and the Soviet Union president, and it's like a midnight blue. Okay. Well, anyway, like I just got this Free Sky bike. Okay, and like I'd realized certain factors about like a compact concept of like Lexus LFSA. I mean, it's been around since 1995, and I was taken to the summit meeting in like Geneva, Switzerland in 1995, and on top of that, the World Trade Center, 9/11, and like a whole bunch of places. And remember any of it was like, I mean, beyond like hard to account for. I mean, like anything for a 1 year period. A good 6 to 9 months was like my first thought of. It was like, and I didn't even, realize that memory had been an issue. But when I realized it was like an automatic 6 to 9 month period, then realizing that maybe for a 3, maybe 4 month period, it would be some idea. I was like, so on that Memory-Defacto became like the issue of like Austin Powers and NASA, which seemed to be a thing about national aeronautics, and some idea of like, air rays and live on air in my mind. In any case, a bunch of television programming involving, information, and the N and the T of like parent, and the N and T in pronunciation of like the rate of NTV of television programming. I think it's like 1972. Okay, and the live on air thing about I don't know if that's the Love American Style thing. Although it's kind of like it presents it like a dating game. Love American Style. It's kind of like I'm trying to actually place it, but it's almost like a if my memory serves me correctly, it's Love American Style. I think it's like a sitcom. I think, but it's like it was almost the title of it gives me the impression almost like a dating game, because that was on television. I mean, at the same time, and Trump's talking about Make America Great Again, and and it seemed to be like the Houston Chronicle with all the Catalyst ads phenomenally huge going on for, I'm thinking, a 3-year period, like a 6-week increment on every Sunday. Then would like stop for maybe 3 or 4 months and do it again. I mean, for like 3 years on Saturday and Sunday. And Great Expectations was doing the same thing. The biggest ads, whole page, half page, quarter page, eight pages, and all about Catalyst. And it was like being presented in description as like practical application as compatibility, not a specific like position as title of position, but a category of the degree, not necessarily when and where the placement of on-site, like the title of position, but it's more about the degree of practical application and compatibility is how they were all being presented in the Houston Chronicle. And I noticed that about, that much about the Catalyst, but they were like doing that for like 3 years, like for like 6-week periods on Saturday and Sunday. And Great Expectations is the deal about it. And Trump was like referring to like make America great again. And now it's almost like the thing about, Love American Style and Live on Air and certain information involving television programming that seem to be, a factor of considerable amount. But I don't want to get off them, but it seemed to be like even the Restless Heart song, I'll Still Be Loving You. Yeah. Yeah, until the last moon is rising, it's like that contemplation and the moon rising up, but it seemed to be the thing about that one word involving, I'm sure that virtually anyone with like amyloidosis, I mean, if that poster, it seemed to be, the Restless Heart song, and it seemed to be, I'll Still Be Loving You, and being still seemed to be, a demanded requirement when a person, like I know I had amyloidosis, and not one cardiologist would even recognize or even, show like white blood counts. They weren't doing anything other than, looking like maybe foreign policy at the best. They could have, some comprehensible English without such a accent from, nationality as like geographic placement as somewhere like in North America. And it's just like, it seemed to be like all the doctors involved at the time. The cardiologist who was like it got far beyond, a limited sources is availability and not being prepared for any of it. It resulted in me like going to like 6-7 different hospitals in the southeast part of like, Clear Lake, Texas area and Pearland area, and even, the medical center, on Fannin. And the thing with this is that, and realize that even at that, a location that seemed to be like St. Luke's, was like also like the Bob McNair, campus of like, I'm actually trying to place them. It's like in the University of Texas Health Science Center area. And I went there for like a mesothelioma because the similarities of mesothelioma was presenting the issues of circulation, yet bronchial and, all this other stuff was like going on. And I got tired of hearing what the cardiologist had to say because, it was affecting my breathing because of circulation as well. And, so I got tired of like hearing and, whatever the cardiologist had to say, and I made an appointment. It was at the Bob McNair campus of like, I'm thinking St. Luke's, and it's like it starts off as a, there's like another name I'm trying to think of it, not DeBakey. He's a surgeon. I think it's a name. I'm not sure if it's like UT or whatever the case is. And I made an appointment to see a specialist, an expert at that location, in the med center for like mesothelioma because that was presenting the similarities. I was like checking out and looking at all the similarities that I'd realized that I'd actually had mesothelioma. It's like unreal. A non-stop cough, and it gets trapped inside the linings of the tissue of, the lungs itself. It's not like a congestive cold of coughing up like mucus. It becomes like in between the tissues of the linings, inside and out of the lungs, not necessarily the tube, and can't even cough it up. I mean, it starts getting to the point of like a nonstop cough. I mean, day and night until, you know, my ribs and stomach and my lower back, I mean, even my thighs and hamstrings, I mean, were like so sore from coughing. I mean, nonstop. I mean, it must have been 4 months. I mean, nonstop. I mean, day and night. My in between my ribs, my stomach, my lower back. I mean, you know, my lower ab. I mean, even my upper thighs and like hamstring, and like, you know, the lower back. I mean, it was like, I mean, so sore from me coughing. I mean, it's unreal. But anyway, I went out there and I made an appointment, and I got there, and all of a sudden, like, they put me in an ambulance and take me to another location that was actually during a Stargate program. You know, something, I mean, the same people, the same clothes, the same ambulance. And when they took me to another location, other than where I made the appointment to talk to someone about mesothelioma, was like another presentation as congestive heart failure. And that's like, you know, before I knew it, I mean, I was taken away from where my appointment was. I think it's St. Luke's with the Bob McNair campus, and there's like another name or something in front of, you know, St. Luke's Bob McNair campus. But anyway, like, they take me out and put me in the ambulance and take me right back, and in the same room is what the deal is. I'm getting burned by laser coming through, I mean, the freaking window from a parking lot on the other side. And the first time I was there, I was like through a Stargate program. It's kind of like the presidential suite, okay? It's like a really nice hospital, you know, like room. I mean, for real. But I mean, when I was in there the first time going through a Stargate program, I'm like going through the circuit, and they brought me back. I mean, I didn't even know where I was at. And I'm getting burned with like a laser, like through the freaking window from someone in like a vehicle in a parking lot on the other side of the street, you know, looking like it was like around maybe 150 to 200 feet away. I mean, I'm getting burned through the freaking window with lasers, okay? And I'm hearing the sound in my mind, and I'm hearing the same thing years later that I'm referring to. Like, I mean, it's sounding like a similarity. Like I'm looking at, like, right now, it's kind of like wondering, you know, if something about it was like a participating factor in a way. And I'm not even sure, but I was hearing something, you know, about like a subconsciousness is like a subliminal message, and I was hearing something in a way. It's kind of like, I was kind of like, you know, like what's really going on in a hospital circuit, other than, you know, like, well, what's going on in a hospital circuit is like, well, you know, what's going on like all around me is happening, and like what I'm hearing, like through, like, it seemed to be, you know, the FCC thing about, like, in cooperation with state and local authorities, this system has been developed that in an event of national emergency, you would have been told, but it's like you can't, you know, you got to train your ears for, like, maybe, you know, like maybe like hearing a bug fart on a satellite during an asteroid storm about some of those frequencies and subliminal messages that you may have heard, you know, plenty of times that corporations use, you know, subliminal message to persuade the potential shoppers, persuade, you know, that suggests maybe a more persuasive technique of thinking about motivating more purchasing and buying, you know, and generating much more based upon, you know, a suggestive way of thinking involving like subliminal message and radio frequency, okay? In any case, I was hearing something that seemed to be, you know, something the second time I was there, and I was realizing I was there and taken there and taken out of the circuit and put there. In Houston, it's kind of like I didn't even know where I was at until like the second time after I'm on YouTube, okay? And all these things are going on about amyloidosis and mesothelioma. Really, when my father had cancer, I was like doing a deal with like Casper Electric as electronic similar, and even that was like, you know, I was taken there, and it's almost like a tears for fear thing about the 4-leaf clover thing in Cloverfield, virtually practically, you know, right across the street of an airport, okay? In any case, okay, at that location, it's like one of the helicopters of like a sonar. I'm not sure if it's Recognizance, but it's a black one. It's like in Dream Theater's Sacrifice Sons music video with like producer Randall Garcia. I mean, it's excuse me, that's like it breaking outside, and you know the helicopter that's in there, I mean, looks, I mean, like the same guy and the same helicopter, But I mean, I'm outside and it's like flying in a circle above me at Casper Electric, approximately, looking like about maybe 30, maybe 40 feet, in air, like circling over. And I'm like watching and looking at the pilot. I mean, he's that close that we have eye contact, 30, 40 feet. I mean, I was like having eye contact with him, like while he's flying around. I mean, for like about 30 minutes nonstop. And I noticed that looked exactly like the helicopter in the Dream Theater Sacrifice Sons, with like Randall Garcia. But in any case, so like that was something else about it. Okay. In any case, so like that information, I'm kind of like trying to stay on track here. It's already gone 30 minutes, but anyway, so like the rest of the heart song, okay. Until the last moon is rising, it seemed to be like both, amyloidosis and that one poster that I have of contemplation. If today were perfect, there would be no need for tomorrow. And about, I'll still be loving you. And being still, and even, certain Whitney Houston songs about being still and hearing it in a whole different way, because I've had something about that, okay? And in any case, so like and why does it have to be wrong or right? Why does it have to be black or white? And it seems to be the thing about, like Univision and the interior design of the Lexus LFSA. Yet Univision presenting the 3 pastels in the black in the beginning and the 3 pastels in white. In the ending, looks like still it's a beginning somewhere of the Remo black dot drum head and the Aquarium Power white dot drum head. And the Univision thing seemed to be, really kind of like about that. But anyway, yeah, so like, I was kind of like thinking about that because some of the information is kind of like, and then Tommy Lee Jones with that effect, and some of these other songs about Russell's Heart, and, why does it have to be wrong or right, and why does it have to be black or white? It seemed to be the issue of the Space Shuttle and the Holy Seagull, yet it seemed to be the AM and PM of ultimately, an Abraham Lincoln night vision shuttle government Stargate program, and the infrared colors of the pastels being, the infrared, the infragreen being the pastel red and the pastel green, and Nelson Smith's song After the Rain, it seemed to be the thing about the amber waves of gray and the iron ore presenting the same colors like the University of Texas Longhorns uniform, like a burnt orange color, and it seemed to be almost like the amber waves of grain, almost having the similarities. I mean, so much at a time of year, and the amber waves of grain looking like iron ore. Yet with night vision, it's kind of like it's giving the impression that it was like even before infrared and infragreen, and may have been available back then, but at the time, the 13-band graphic equalizer just didn't have that significance of a PG-13 rating as presidents and governors, or the PG being 23 or Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi, involving the highest levels of quantum and like digital signal processing and international electronic engineering, and special effects and waveform, and the practical applications of formulas between like chemistry and medical technology, and electronics, and audio production, and like music video. That seemed to be the perpendicular spiral that only gives the similarities like the bandwidth and spectrum, but it also leads to like the idea of like supplemental security income that goes to like to the pro bono based upon my experience, okay, of like going through like circuit and realizing I'd been gassed and air rays like going on and hard to count for anything for like a 1 year period, and realized that I'd been operating like 4 inches of my humerus bone had been removed. And I mean, it was so intense for a while. I mean, I didn't have time to worry about anything, and I was like really not in a good condition. But I'd realized I was having to lean to like my left and right before I even realized that I'd been operated on, really, and that it actually had taken place and happened. But it seemed to be world news identifying the spore stone used in orthopedic surgery. And mending is so the word when they use it that it's like I can't even ignore, the U.S. amendments of constitutional law and state statutes annotated You know, and you know, the amendments, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of press, and um, right to assemble, and all that of like the amendments. Okay. Yet it seemed to be the combine of orthopedic surgery of the spore stone that's used to replace missing or damaged bone, and world news is referring to, I mean, the word repeatedly, you know, mending. I mean, even Mork and Mindy, I mean, like Robin Williams and Pam Dauber, you know, Mork for Mork, I mean, for real. And, you know, the 2V twin finger thing about, you know, Sean's about 909 had led to, you know, the 13 band graphic equalizer with the pastel green of ambience and the pastel red of like resistance, and PG-13 being the Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi, and the 13 being like 99, and ultimately, you know, Chevy Chase in Washington, the Department of Education, yet 99 being all telepathic about, you know, PG-13, and 13 being spelled out as like 99, okay? And all that information in Lincoln, Washington, D.C. with like Chevy Chase's name, okay? And the 1992 presidential inaugural ball with William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore, and the Department of Education combining a student loan with a Pell Grant, or, you know, the thing about maybe, you know, Al-Anon, okay? Al-Anon foster granting a student loan, combining a student loan with a Pell Grant, and it seemed to be the idea about, you know, certain factors that would present like the in-law. It's like Al-Anon gives the impression almost like an in-law. Well, you know, in-laws, you know, hardly ever involved with like most families. I mean, even more so before. You know, it's kind of like almost like that. I'm assuming, you know, some idea of, you know, some families that in-laws normally don't seem to be, you know, around, you know, at least in my life anyway. I kind of had that impression, but there seemed to be a thing about, you know, the in-law. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, are you saying that someone is not an in-law? Well, what are you really trying to say? Don't tell me it's like you're having an outlaw as some idea of third-party easement of like graffiti and confetti and, you know, bartering and trading, you know, as a North American Free Trade Act, citizenship birthrights in the form of a birth certificate. Or some idea of absentee voting, carbon footprint, and mechanics liens based upon a vice president network. Yet the similarities of Al-Anon and the in-laws kind of like presents that issue, really kind of like, you know, really in that way. The thing of it is, it's almost like a current resident, and it's almost like at the same time, Al-Anon presenting, you know, and you've probably been familiar, or at least heard it at some point, a misappropriation allocation in Mississippi. And it seemed to be, you know, it's really suggesting, you know, a 12-step program of AA or NA or CA, and I won't go beyond that point, you know, right now. But the thing of it is that it almost gives that presence, that family law. It's almost like soap opera, presenting it as television. As a current resident, I mean, like the word moot, M-O-O-T, okay? And that is degreed college career students on campus practicing law, including like a soap opera. I mean, it presents the family law as presence. I mean, like really anywhere anyone's at on this planet, at least, you know, really, I mean, if it's the only issue of product registration combined with a birth certificate or citizenship and birthrights, I mean, if it's simply getting to a carbon footprint and absentee voting only based upon like product registration, or maybe a preliminary prejudice of product registration of a birth certificate, and only what Babylon means to Pearland and the alphanumerics of like 71, and the smart meter of center point energy, or a 90 degree of 1 cycle per second at a 90 degree, looking like a circle with a dot in it. Ultimately, the halo left side and the back side of the US $1 bill, even the euro dollar between the HMO, you know, the H and O, HM being like 21, the 8 and 13 combined is like, you know, 21, the U thing. And, you know, when proper English numerical composition, with the P being visible, with P being silent, you know, in like between county and country, and put the R in the UO being the euro and the euro dollar. On the backside of the US $1 bill, it presents the Inuit confidence minus transfiguration 12, being 12, but, you know, like region 1 and region 2 at the same time, of a European standard that has a significance of the 240 volts I mean, in the 240%, I mean, in a pawn shop of a commercial venue of living quarter, is where that 240 volts is. It's a whole different way of life, more so than not, of like millionaires, not limited to. It's considered like not a neighborhood. There's commercial buildings that might give the similarities, but not commercial venue of living quarter. That's not affected by, K television or W television, and have like an entire different like television network that, and a whole different way of life, different news, and I mean everything about it. It's like, it's like not depreciation or some Ulysses S. Grant issue combined in student loan with Pell Grant. It's like depreciation in settlement, or appreciation depreciation, like it's a presidential debate of a vice president network having fair use. And the only thing that seems to be of the American Free Trade Act and North Atlantic Peace Treaty organization is whether or not, as a method of banking, if an endorsement has been identified as human capital or the who knows anyway form, knowing as a foreign knowledge of performance monitoring if product registration is really the only issue of who knows anyway form, or absentee voting, or carbon footprints, or mechanics liens, or all that information, or whether or not, if graffiti and confetti is the only truth about the E between calculus and the E in quantum, the EE in quantum, okay, confetti is like one E, okay, and graffiti is pronounced with like two E's. Feet, F-E-E-T, is pronounced that way and is that way because there's like confetti with one E and graffiti with like two E's, okay? But the thing of it is that that's like defining the meaning of the backside of the US $1 bill with that symbolic representation. It's there about the E and the EE, and it's the difference between calculus and quantum and structure that way. It's there. It's like it's invisible, okay? It's like it's there, but it's like a foreknowledge of like, well, there's more there. And it's like a pi r squared to E equal MC squared and the exponential quotients of power multiplication, and it identifies really the E and the EE, and difference between calculus and difference between quantum, which is the EE, and difference between that and like quite a bit. It goes really beyond the thought of maybe the accuracy of like a field scope and range. It's like a plus sign of accuracy of like aiming, but it's like a center point, like a laser, as like a circle with a dot in it. That's some like idea of halo presenting the idea of the Eurodollar, where the 240% in the pawn shop is really a 240 volt of a commercial venue of a European standard, identifying the symbolic representation that's actually on the backside of the US $1 bill on some of their products of what presented here as US patents involving like product registration. And they're not always joined together, but maybe it'd be identified as separate and two different. What is presented as one combined, like a spirit of adoption, and geographically like Brazoria country with the R of Brazoria County, like telepathic brainwaves, like Galveston County and the area code 213 of Los Angeles, or Chevrolet Silverado, or even the thing about Chevrolet Camaro IROC Z28 presenting the Alpha America 213, and Lincoln Continental, the hood arm of like International Financial Management, yet identifying high-rise and commercial venues that way, which was the case like when I was going through a Stargate program and the memory about all that. Yeah, so like I started off with all that stuff about Restless Heart and those two songs, I'll Still Be Loving You, and about the Until the Last Moon Is Rising seemed to be that poster on my wall before I even realized it. In certain words and phrases, even the thing about Ivanka Trump at like at a podium in front of like what seemed to be far beyond larger than like any of them. It's like the perception of the dual magnification and like Black Moon Rising, and it seemed to be that Black Moon Rising and that poster on the wall combined, and the effect, it's almost like Ivanka Trump at that podium with that jet seemed to be far beyond like larger than normal, and it's that effect in that Black Moon Rising, and it's like that Restless Heart song in my mind. Until the last moon is rising, you'll see the love in my eyes, my love. I'll be yours until the end of time, till time stands still, until the winds don't blow. When today is just a memory, and here I am with like memory minus the fact of being 35, and it seemed to be, so retroactive now. I just purchased a brand new 2025 FreeSky Rocky Pro 1,800 watt step-through e-bike, okay? It's not available anywhere that I know of, but they sent me that, okay? Which was actually in Burger King, had been remodeled in 1995, okay? And it was like when I got back, it was like back in its original design and interior. And they did it again like here recently after I got this bike, and I was like really mad at first, but it's really more advanced. But it's identifying 1995 of a Stargate program. And all that was going on inside. I was taking it, but it wasn't my bike. I hadn't purchased it yet, but it was there in there. And it's parked right by some balloons, and a laser blew my tire out. Just like it was when I was there during Stargate program. I didn't even know where I was at. Of course, I realized it's obviously in Pearland. But my bike just fell over, and it wouldn't be the first time a laser had to like burn a hole. I mean, you can't even see the hole. Laser been burning holes. Something like just does that, and it's like really not cool. Like it's really, well, you see, it's really not a sting operation. It's just like light year technology, okay? So that's why I look at it. It doesn't have to be like anything about a sting operation, but who you trying to kid, okay? So like anyways, like so I was charging my brand new bike that is actually a metallic midnight blue and more advanced than what's showing on Amazon. You know, for the Free Sky Rocky Pro, like a metallic royal blue. What they sent me was a metallic, and this seemed to be the thing about 1995 of the Air Force One, President of the United States Air Force One being identified as a midnight blue with like the pastels 1040 EZ form, and I think it had a little bit of gold, like the Soviet Union presidential jet. Yet a military bureau determined of Dream Theater's like music video, Sacrifice Sons, with the producer Randall Garcia. In that point of view, that one particular cargo jet, seemingly thing about Chicago, and a Bette Midler song, In the Mind's Eye of a military bureau determined, a Bette Midler singing, God is watching us from a distance, and somewhere in my mind, Ivanka Trump at a podium. Yeah, so like, and that thing about Black Moon Rice, it's like Russ's heart in my mind. Me at a podium in a different location in Alvin, almost a thing in my mind, somehow in my mind, even like Hawaii 5-0 at Alvin Community College in the student library and student lounge when I was there. I mean, I immediately like recognized them, but they were there like when I was there. I was kind of like, hey, you know, yeah, you know, something about Hawaii 5-0 was like, you know, on campus at Alvin Community College. During a specific point, and the same acronym HPD as Houston Police Department, as you know, Hawaii 5-0, the HPD of Hawaii 5-0 being the Hawaiian like police department, okay, and thing about it. But anyway, so like all that was like going on in my mind, and other factors. But yeah, it's already going on like 47 minutes, right at 48 minutes. Like I mean, like right now, okay. And so much of this was like going on, and I didn't even consider, I mean, a Stargate program before, but when I was like going through the circuit, and that period of 6 to a 9 month period, you know, ultimately an entire year, and remembering, then my memory was coming back, more and more videos and locations, even like Scott Kelly at a Yanni concert at the pyramids in Egypt. I was taken there, and I believe I've seen his name as Mark Kelly as well, but he's like on a big screen, talking like the Yanni audience and Yanni at the concert. And I think Daystar is the thing about the TriStar Christian satellite television network in outer space. I think it's still the newest. But when I heard the information that TriStar is like the newest of Christian satellite television networks in outer space, okay. And it seemed to be the thing about the Yanni concert being something in my mind about like during the day, and like Daystar and the Stargate program, and you know, Vengeance Love 30 is like day being like 30, and Daystar, you know, like South America 30 and 58 being like 88 in Trump. In California, Daystar, that's like 30 and 58. That's like 88. I'm just now like realizing, I mean, like I knew that, but it didn't have significance. Like while I was just talking, all of a sudden it's like it has its significance connecting the Yanni concert. With like, you know, Scott Kelly talking, but I'm almost for certain that I've seen it, Mark Kelly as well. Yeah, and that's something about the Memory-Defacto. I mean, if there's any possibility, because like for a 6 to 9 month period, you know, really ultimately in like an entire year, I mean, so like far beyond, like hard to count for like anything. And like a 25 to 30 year period had passed, and I realized that memory had really been the issue that 1 year period. And before I even considered calling it a Stargate program, progressively an Abraham Lincoln night vision shuttle government Stargate program, and actually placed on a rocket. I mean, obviously it's something about the Houston Rockets, Compaq Center, and like the Lexus LFSA being a compact concept. What was like 1995 of the Lexus LFSA was 1995, presented, and the same people in the video of like presented as the 2015 summit meeting was really 1995. I mean, I was actually taken there. Same videos, the same car. It's still a compact concept and hadn't even been distributed. Just like the bike I just received, it's the Rocky Pro, the Free Sky Rocky Pro in the midnight blue, and the LED display is like horizontal in the landscape position. And the NFC card, it seems this is like where Kiefer Sutherland comes in about the NFC card being alphanumeric 23 in the Boolean chart, with the PT13 being like, 23, or CEO or GMC's raising the bar. But the thing with this is that Kiefer Sutherland's like in 24, okay? And the acronyms like HOA, GMAC, and IEEE, and the Apple iPhone, the SE, and Apple iPhone SE, between the recent statute and the IRA, and certain factors of even like Robert Plant's song, What Is and What Should Never Be. It seemed to be the only thing about that one title about what should is where like the ER goes in, which should and be in the shoulder. What is and what should never be. It's like alphanumerically, seemingly having an alphanumeric like Pearland. And the thing about the shoulder and the laser, and something that had led me to the prefix of the White House and a picture in my mailbox of LASIK laser corrective eye surgery because of a laser. And it seemed to be the title of that one song being the only thing about the ER applied. And likewise, the second time of like the 15th month not having to call 911. And I'm looking at her. I mean, I'm so looking at her, it's unreal. Yeah, about the prefix of the White House being 4, 5, and 6 and 15. Yeah. Of LASIK laser corrective eye surgery. Yeah. That's unreal. Yeah. So like anyway, so like I'm having a whole different perception, unlike any other about that. Yeah. So like anyway, so like I was kind of like thinking about that, and about 4, 5, and 6 being 15, and the 15th month of like having to call 911 over like admitting diagnosis. In any case, so like the laser seemed to be the one thing about Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin song, What Is and What Should Never Be, and should having the ER of shoulder, never being like 64 and 7 like 71 in Pearland, never be 64 and 7 being 71 in Pearland, and should in shoulder, and it seemed to be, it has that significance. And I'm gonna have to think about it before I like go beyond automatically involving in my mind probably a laser. Me being a German in music video, I'm almost thinking that the way I was thinking that long ago was a persuasive technique of thinking. But ultimately getting to like a baptism of June 14th, 1992, seemingly ultimately 6 Flags baptism in like Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, of like location of the Social Security Administration of Network Operations Centers. And it seemed to be the thing about the SAT on a Saturday morning, yet an identical twin rainbow at Fort Stockton, Texas. And I'm almost for certain it's probably right at the exact time of my baptism on June 14, 92, on a Saturday morning. It was like Flag Day. And I'm not sure if the identical twin rainbow, but it seemed to have all the Chevrolet Geoprism is Geoprism, and the spelled with a Z, but the M is in about Geoprism is Geoprism being alphanumeric 247, and like a Robert E. Rubin bicentennial drummer being alphanumeric 200, Robert E. Rubin being 147, and the thing about Fantasy Love 30 and 30 being spelled out being alphanumeric 100, Memory-Defacto 100, in that way. Robert E. Rubin was so on television, I mean, unlike any other United States Secretary of Treasury, I mean, in my entire life, I mean, not only could I not ignore it, it's just that I had all the books, and And I was like looking in that direction. I mean, anyway, I mean, because of the baptism and a spiritual experience about, you know, some idea of like mental telepathy minus God, and at the Mormon Church in Friendswood, Texas, okay, you must first be baptized with water not many days hence. And it's almost like the Hindenburg and hence an Oval Office of something. The water was warm, okay, at that baptism, okay. June 14th, 1992, at the Mormon Church, there on Deseret, right, you know, kind of adjacent, not exactly the perfect 90-degree right angle of like Sunset Boulevard. I'm thinking it could be, but the street close by, the Falling Leaf, is really something about that. At several locations during the Stargate program, and I'm thinking I was at the Elvis Presley mansion, and something about Lisa Marie Presley with Michael Jackson for a specific time, and the initials of Michael Jackson being 23. And the thing about Dr. Pepper, likewise, the 23 alphabetical letters of Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi being 23. I'm almost for certain that I was actually in front of like Elvis Presley mansion and Marie Osmond. I'm not even sure if I was like dressed up as a rock and roll clown or had makeup, but I'm thinking that I was. I couldn't even see myself. It was like the James Madison dolly, okay, you know, the $5,000 guy, you know, with like putting me on it, and phenomenally like not funny to me for real. Okay, but you know, I mean, that's something about her kissing me, and I mean, if it's the significance of being elliptical, then there it is. And I'm thinking I was like at the Elvis Presley mansion, because all this information I'm talking about, I mean, has all the connectivity of available information on television. And Marie Osmond, it was like the thing like in 1997 on front page of Parade magazine, and that like blue silk shirt, it seemed to have significance of like Nostradamus, yet the color code of like, you know, the baby blue. You had Babylon, Pearland, and you know, baby being like 30 and Vantage Love 30, or Secret De Facto 30, and blue being the 40 thing, you know, about all that information. It's like 30 and 40 is like Secret, Vantage Love, like Vantage being 70 and Secret, like baby blue being like the alphanumerics is 70. But anyway, Marie Osmond was like wearing that like baby blue like satin shirt on front page of Hit Parade and Houston Chronicle, and it presented all this information about even the similarities of like the Persian Gulf, of like Orson Welles narrating like Nostradamus, and the accuracy of 400 years combined with the new millennium, ultimately getting to the highest possible score of 2400. It's like referring to the millennium and like 2012, yet the accuracy of Nostradamus of 400 years being the year 2000, combined with this actually like a 2400 highest possible score of an SAT. But I'm like really about VSAT like right now. I mean, Memory-Defacto is really because of my memory after a 25 to 30 year period, depending on what point of origin. And now I've just got this bike. It's like a grandfathered corporate law of retroactive presidential administration, being as Free Sky Rocky Pro in the Midnight Blue, because 1995 is the year that the FBI identifies, you know, like the US dollar doesn't even have to be involved as a color code between the Federal Reserve note being on the US $1, or the acronym FBI is Federal Bureau of Investigation, automatically the US dollar. But with the acronym, it's almost like a Foreign Bureau Intelligence, a Foreign Bureau Interrogation of a Stargate program. 1995, the Air Force One, the President of the United States, was identified with the Midnight Blue and Baby Blue, and like I think a little bit of gold as well. And that's the issue likewise with like Trump anyway. But I'm talking about the Air Force One of the President of the United States, and the thing about the Soviet Union presidential jet of the Midnight Blue, and the helicopter like once flew over the Cuckoo's Nest in Austin, and like horizontally twin propelled like aircraft that seemed to be like 70 yards, if not 100 yards long. Phenomenally, I mean, huge, almost like the 404 thing about the song Midnight Blue. So that, and like those two jets, and now it seems to be the retroactive presidential administration of like grandfather corporate law of like all that being 1995, and this bike was available obviously of 1995, because some of the information I'm looking at of a serial number is like reference to like someone I spoke to going through the circuit of Warden and like JP Morgan Chase. A lot of Wardens are automatically investment firms. Anyway, one, it's like the first letter of my serial number, and I like the only one I know of that is around. I think I'm the only one that has it in the midnight blue of a Free Sky Rocky Pro. And what the deal is during the Stargate program, I was actually taking that location of that guy saying, "Consider it shredded, Mr. President," out in the woods, and him doing that actually seemed to be like a Bryan Adams Cut Like a Knife song of a location on El Camino in Clear Lake, Texas, of an interview of like cutlery for like a sales position involving, you know, cutlery of like knives and forks, and, you know, for like fine dining and, you know, barbecues. And it ultimately seemed to be a thing about it being titled like Vortec and like Chevrolet Silverado's like V8 engine in the brochures during that particular time. In pronunciation, like Vortec as being like the cutlery thing, and ultimately it almost seemed to be like the Bryan Adams, like cuts like a knife. And all this information, and even, you know, all that information leading to like the humerus bone and orthopedic surgery and world news referring to the spore stone being used in orthopedic surgery and using the word mends, because that particular deal about bone being replaced is that bone goes through it. They say it's actually stronger than it was before when it completely heals, using a spore stone that's found in the ocean. But, you know, it's like the clam in the river. It's like how to get there. It's the way the spore stone is presented sometimes as a coral reef. But like the Deep Star 6 thing about a forecast, even Bass Pro of freshwater, something about it in my mind on Highway 288 and RPM and like on 288 in Iowa Colony, the Alpha American 132 and like Univision and Presidential that way of Highway 288 between Iowa Colony and like Loop 610 of like RPM and like Pro Bass. I've seen it both way, Pro Bass and Bass Pro. Ultimately the GIT of like Geospatial Information Technology, and I'll thank heaven for 7-Eleven thing about it, you know. Anyway, yeah, so like it's already going on more than an hour, so like I'm gonna take a break, okay? But I'm thinking about, I mean, like all that stuff, I mean, for real. I mean, so for real, it's really I mean, so memory that for that 1 year period between like 1995 and I'm thinking 1996, I mean, it was like really seriously intense, and didn't remember a thing about it. And it was like Europe's most wealthiest museum with a checkerboard inside is when I knew for the first time. And that was like back before, I think I actually uploaded my videos on like YouTube beginning in 2020 to 2022. I've had to put a complete hold and wait for quite some time. This year 2025, but I just got that Free Sky Rocky Pro and something of like retroactive presidential administration in the form of like, you know, options and futures, you know, predicted estimate options and futures, yet grandfathered corporate law of retroactive presidential administration, and like the Geneva, Switzerland summit meetings. Even this bike, I don't know if this bike was at that, but I know that the Lexus LFSA is exactly the Compaq concept, and it seemed to be a thing about Compaq Center and the Houston Rockets, and something about actually being taken during the Stargate program to an International Space Station, way bigger than what you've seen of astronauts on television. Yeah, for real. So like anyway, yeah. Anyway, I'm like thinking about it, trying to remember everything, you know, quite a bit. I mean, far beyond. Real not funny about the memory issue. What's going on with that kind of like stuff about seemingly the only significance of like the one right now, as of now, seem have more significance than any other alphanumeric equation, like memory minus the facto. So anyway, so like there it is being 35, okay, and Austin Powers and NASA and I-35, ultimately human capital, beyond a method of banking. Yeah, so like anyway, there it is, okay. Going on like 1 hour, 4 minutes, and like 37 seconds, so like there it is, okay.